Welcome, and this time I'm in Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, one of my favorite locations where there's a group of 3 trees. I usually paint them from a distance, but this time I thought I'd get a little bit closer. And as you can tell, it's a real cloudy day, early morning, but I know it's going to get sunny sometime in the morning. I just don't know when. So I thought I could get here early and pretty much just block in everything that I can and just wait for the sun. That way when the sun comes out, I can knock in the highlights where I need them. Without having to worry about overdoing it or losing them later on. Right now I'm just sketching everything out. That the set of 3 trees is on the right, and then there's a tree on the left that I try to add in for a little bit of balance. In retrospect, you'll see that it should be a little bit lighter in value. And right now I'm keying in the sky. I find for landscapes this is more and more important for me. And right now there's a very nice cloud pattern too, so I want to get in as fast as I can. So I just throw some blue in there. I'm trying something new with primarily sky is painted with vertical strokes, unless we're going into the clouds, and I aim to do a little more horizontal. And the violet indicates the underside of this cloud. And as I paint it, I'm just trying to think of value, not so much color. Looking at primarily just value and that color temperature, of course. Now the violet could be in a dirtier violet, could be a more intense violet. I just wanted to get that violet in because that's what I saw at the time, more or less the impression of the cloud. And then I put some cools in there, the same value as the violet, to give it a little more variety. The blue I'm putting in right now is the sky you see through the cloud, and underneath now is where you see the rest of the sky. And being early morning, it's a little bit more yellowish, I guess, the lower part of the sky, where the zenith is a little more blue, and the cloud breaks them up right in the middle. So right now I'm just trying to key in that main value in a warmer tone, and then I go back up and I use that same light value in those clouds. Not because I'm trying to use continuity of that color, I'm just trying to use its value more or less. And I throw in some lighter values within those clouds, trying to keep everything as soft as I can, using the vertical strokes down below. The whole idea with this is to give the sky a little bit of a more expanse by doing vertical strokes. Up top I darken that blue on the right hand side, more or less creating a gradation in the sky, creating a little more interest this time. You could argue that it either pulls away from that top wisp of cloud or it pushes you towards the top wispy cloud. And as I clean my palette right now, I'm getting ready for working on the foreground, the midground, and the background. I think I start keying in the back. Oh no, I start keying in the pathway, something a little more dark, a little more vibrant. And as we get closer to the trees, same value but less vibrant, less chroma, a little more dirty green, I guess you could say. And trying to get the lead in with the pathway, and then I start working on the background. And this is a blueberry field in the background, that dusty, dirty color. And I kind of bring it into the foreground as well because I saw some of those bushes there. And on the left there's a little bit of water, so I just key that in and try to get a dark value reflection. More or less just impression of things right now. I don't want to worry about detail. I don't want to worry about waves or highlights. It's more just keying in values for myself. And now this is the distant trees and the horizon, making sure the value is correct. If they're too dark, they come forward too much. If they're too light, then possibly they get lost too much. So as you can see, though, the ones on the right are a little darker value than the ones on the left. This is more or less just to create a gradation within the background. And then later on, I'll start bringing in a little bit more warmer grays, I guess, in the back to create a little bit of sense of light. Here, keying in the foreground path, you can see my shadow on the painting. The sun's starting to come out. I'm trying to remember everything I see as the sun comes out. I think it comes back a little bit later. I can't remember. We'll see. And I'm not even bothered painting the trees right now. Everything is about keying in the rest of the painting, and then I'll focus on the trees. A little bit of more background grasses along the dike. Trying to get a little more chroma in there. Trying to pull your eyes in towards there. Trying to balance the big trees that are going to be on the right. And you can see I'm using this opportunity where the light is to put in a little bit higher, lighter greens and a little more chromatic greens. Moving into some reds that help complement the green, but the grasses there just happen to be a little bit red as well, and trying to bring that down into the water. More or less, I'm just trying to capture everything that I see impressionistically. And the path itself is rather boring, so I try to bring in some horizontals on that path from larger to smaller to help bring you into the painting. And these trees, what I'm doing now is just I'm removing paint instead of painting thick over really thick paint. I decided to scrape off some of the existing paint that I did in the sky, and I'm going to start laying in the trees themselves. And I always start with the shadows. Generally, that's the way I handle trees or objects themselves. And one thing you'll notice here is it goes against everything that I try to do, but those trees are perfectly spaced apart. And I realized it at about this time, and I figured, well, I don't want to scrape it off and repaint it because I'm going to be losing my light, so I just start laying everything in. And I'm getting in some branches as well, and seeing how far they come over. And there's this back tree. Hindsight, this tree on the left should have been a little bit lighter in value, and I'll probably go back in the studio and lighten that tree up quite a bit. You can see all the gnats that are out that day. There must have been 3,000 of these things bothering me. I'm just trying to get in some nice highlights along that back path. Trying to draw your eye towards there, which will help balance the trees. The idea isn't to push you towards a smaller tree. The idea is that smaller tree is just going to balance the larger trees on the right. Trying to get some of the foliage on that tree. It is spring here. Nothing's really coming out yet. All the trees are pretty brown still. And I start putting in the mids of the tree, trying to just create a rough shape. Trying to get the shape varied within those trees so they're just not sticking straight out. And this is kind of how I'm handling the spacing between the trees. As I try to throw a tree in between trees, and you'll see me throw another tree in between the two trees on the right. And just trying to adding a shadow on the left hand side and lightening it up on the center again, slowly building up my highlights on the trees. I find building up highlights is really important to give a sense of dimension. If you just go dark, light, dark, it's not going to give you any sense of depth or any sense of variation, really. Here I'm throwing in a little bit of greens into the trees. I could see green tones. I might have punched the chroma a little bit, but for all given purposes, it adds to the interest. And you see I just added another smaller tree in between those two trees, trying to break up the variety in there. And then I start really putting in my darks, trying to ground those trees. And it also helps balance everything that's happening on the left. And you got to remember, I painted this within about an hour and a half, so I'm going pretty quickly. I make a decision, I just go forward with it. No second guessing. And I find painting like this is really helpful, even if the painting ends up not working. Making those decisions on the fly is what helps makes you a better painter, more or less. Trying to lead your eye in with those the green edges of the path. Feathering some edges so they're not so important, so your eye isn't drawn over there. Trying to darken it over on the right hand side as well. But it wasn't as an intense green on the right hand side as it was on the left. And I think I'll start working on the middle a little bit, changing the variety, warming the greens up a little bit. And I will probably start lightening it later on. There I go right now, trying to give it a little more life, because it is a ground plane, and it is receiving quite a bit of light, although it is a dirt path. It's a fine balance, and in the end, I don't think I got it as light as I probably should have, so when I fix the tree on the left, I'll probably go in and adjust the ground plane as well. And now for the highlight warms, I'm putting into the trees that I saw when it was sunny out. Just trying to give them some life, some warmth. And I think I start working on the branches a little bit more, because this tree was really intensive. It's one of those trees that have been there a long time, and there's a lot of thicket of branches going on. Nothing really breaks or falls off. I didn't want to put them all in, but I wanted to give a sense of volume, I guess, with the trees. So I just keep on adding branches in here, branches in there, and trying to fill in the space using random patterns, right? There's nothing worse than giving trees branches that kind of all fall the same angle or all fall the same thickness, etc., etc. Later on, I'll go in and give it some lighter branches as well instead of just the plain dark ones. Even though I pretty much did just see a thicket of silhouettes, going in and varying the value of the branches really helps. Gives it a sense of depth in and out. So you can't always believe your eyes, right? Especially when you're looking into a silhouetted pattern. You got to give it some sort of variation, I think. Otherwise, everything just becomes a little bit too static. I'm trying to work in giving some grassy feel into the path as well. And I find it just breaks up the larger masses. A lot of times people say I have quite a bit of detail in my paintings, but I don't actually. It's just the sense of detail that gives them a little more interest. Here, working on the left, trying to give the water a little bit more of interest. I think I lightened it too much, so I go in a bit, darken it, and I try to add some grasses over it to distract from it. I just don't want that pond to be something your eye is always drawn to. I want you to just kind of see it as reference and move on. And here I'm playing with that left-hand tree again, and I think I darkened it a little bit too much still. And then, of course, adding a little bit more warm highlights on those trees just to bring them out a little bit more. Because you got to remember, those trees for me were the highlight. So that's where I'm giving the emphasis, right? You got the nice silhouette of the dark trees against the sky, adding a little more warmer highlights on them, trying to bring them forward. And I think that's pretty much it for the painting. No, I think I got some more highlights going on. Trying to warm up that, what do you want to call it, the mid-ground around the trees. I bring a little bit of that forward, but not a lot. I want you to go from front to middle, and then hopefully over to the right, and then you dance over left to that other tree. And then you'll notice the sky pattern, etc. like that. That was kind of my plan that I was going for. Notice I'm darkening the bottom of this painting. It's because I want you to lead in, so I'm creating a gradation from dark at the bottom to more, lighter in the center, but it's getting more of a mid-tone. And I do try to add a little bit of light there to bring it a little bit further, but I think even still that could have been highlighted a little bit better just to help push it. I mean, at the time you make a decision, you think it's the right decision, but you know, sometimes you go back and in hindsight, you just got to tweak a couple things. It's really about what are you looking for and what are you looking to change in terms of either the way the person enters the painting or a person follows through on a painting. Pushing values and color temperature really helps that. And we're just doing some final highlights in that water, give it a little bit of sparkle, give it a little more life, but not too much that it takes away. I tried a little scraping technique, but I noticed that it's not really working that well. It brings up too much light, and I add my signature, and that's pretty much it. Calling it a day. A little bit of detail work here, you can see how scratchy and soft everything is. The sky, I try to lay it in pretty thick and with confidence. You know, I only had one shot in it, no real chance to fix it up. And that's the final piece. And then once I say it again, I'll probably work on it in the studio just to tweak it. But thanks for watching. Give the video a like, share it with your friends. Cheers.